peaceful morning air, is down my hammer and watched as officers approached, hands resting on their holsters behind. Marching with the confidence of someone who just caught a serial killer was Brenda Harrington, president of the Maplewood Estates HOA. That's him, she shrieked, pointing at me with a manicured finger. That's the squatter who's illegally building on protected HOA land. The lead officer, a tall man with graying temples, approached me cautiously. Sir, I'm going to need to see some identification and any permits you have for this. Construction, I reached into my back pocket, slowly pulling out my wallet and the folder of documents I'd started carrying everywhere since Brenda's harassment began. Officer Davidson, I said, reading his name tag. If you think there's been a misunderstanding, this is my party. Brenda pushed forward, her face red with indignation. Don't listen to him. This entire lakefront belongs to the Maplewood Estates community. I have documentation. Officer Davidson held up a hand to silence. Her then examined my papers. His eyebrows climbed higher with each document Hare viewed, the deed, the survey, the water rights, dating back to 1922. His expression shifted from professional skepticism to something approaching amusement. Mom, he said, turning to Brenda with a tone that made her step back. According to these documents, this gentleman owns not just this plot, but the entire riverfront from mile marker 7 to mile marker 12. That includes all water access rights. The whole thing had started 3 months earlier when I'd finally decided to build on the land my grandfather left me, 20 acres of pristine lakefront property, untouched since he bought it in the 50s. The property bordered Maplewood Estates, a gated community that had sprung up in the 9s, but my land had never been part of their HOA. Spent years dreaming of cabins, solar panels for off-grid living, a wraparound deck overlooking the water, a dock for the small boat I'd bought last summer after decades of city living working as a software engineer. I was ready for weekend escapes to something simpler. The first sign of trouble came on day 2 of construction. I was marking out the foundation when a golf cart came speeding down the dirt path. Kicking up dust clouds, Brenda Harrington emerged like she was storming Normandy Beach. "Excuse me," she barked, not bothering with pleasantries. "What do you think you're doing?" Is straightened up, wiping sweat from my forehead, building a cabin. "Can I help you? This is hot property. You can't just start construction without board approval." Like pit my voice level, though I could already feel my patience wearing thin. "This isn't hot property. This land belongs to Michelle." Laughed, actually laughed like it told her the earth was flat. All lakefront access in this area belongs to Maplewood Estates. I don't know what scam you're trying to pull, but I'm shutting this down right now. That was the beginning of what would become a 3-month campaign of harassment. Every morning, I'd arrive to find new notices taped to my equipment, cease and desist letters that weren't worth the paper. They were printed on warning, unauthorized construction signs that I'd to send my burn pilot. Then came the trespass catcher on my trail camera, sneaking onto me property at tall hours, taking photos, measuring things, acting like some kind of discount private investigator. One morning, it found her actually standing inside the foundation. I'd poured, taking notes on a clipboard. "Brenda." I called out, making her jump. "You're trespassing again." She spun around, clutching her clipboard like a shield. "I'm documenting HOA violations. The noise alone is disturbing our residents' peace and tranquility. The nearest house is half a mile away," I pointed out, "and it's 10 in the morning on a Tuesday. I'm well within legal construction hours. We'll see what our lawyers have to say about that." She huffed, marching back to her golf cart. The lawyers never materialized, but the harassment escalated. She started bringing other board members, trying to intimidate me with numbers. They'd stand at what they thought was the property line, taking pictures and muttering among themselves. One day, she brought a man she introduced as the HOA environmental compliance officer, which I'm pretty sure was just her nephew in a polo shirt. The breaking point came when I arrived one morning to find she'd put up her own signs, "Private property, Maplewood Estates HOA," along what she decided was the boundary. That's when I knew I needed to start carrying my documentation everywhere. Those signs need to come down. I told her when she arrived for her daily harassment session. "Make me," she said, with a smirk. "You've called the real authorities this time. The police are on their way to remove you from our property." Which brought us to the current moment with Officer Davidson reviewing my papers while Brenda's face went through several shades of purple. "This can't be right," she sputtered. "The HOA owns all water access. We've been using that beach for 20 years. Using it and owning it are two different things, ma'am." "Officer," Davidson said, "according to these documents, you've been trespassing on this gentleman's property for 20 years. I pulled out the survey map, spreading it on the hood of the police car. My grandfather owned everything from here." I pointed to the northern boundary, to here, that includes the beach area. "Your community has been using the hiking trail along the river and the boat launch." Brenda's mouth opened and closed like fish gasping for air. The other officers had gathered around, and I could see them trying not to smile. One of them whispered something about another HOA president, and they all nodded knowingly. But we maintained that beach, Brenda protested. We pay for the sand replenishment. We installed the picnic tables on my property. Zed calmly without permission. That's actually vandalism. Technically speaking, Officer Davidson handed my documents back. Sir, would you like to press trespassing charges? It sounds like this has been an ongoing issue, pretended to consider it while Brenda's face went from purple to white. Note at this time, officer, but I will be installing proper boundary markers and not respassing signs. Anyone crossing them will be prosecuted. You can't do this, Brenda shrieked. The entire community uses that beach. Our property values depend on lake access. Should have thought of that before you tried to steal my land. I said with a shrug. The officers left with a warning to Brenda about filing false police reports. She stood, the rest still clutching her clipboard, watching her authority. Tie crumble like my grandmother's coffee cake. Words spread through Maplewood Estates faster than wildfire in August. By that evening, my phone was ringing off the hook. Board members, residents, everyone wanted to talk about lake access. The story got bigger with each telling by the time it reached the back of the subdivision. I apparently owned half the county and was planning to build a casino. The next morning, there were 15 people waiting by my construction site, not with pitchforks, thankfully, but with concerned faces and nervous energy. A man in khakis and ag. Ulfshirt stepped forward. Marsha Peterson, I'm Jack Sullivan, Vice President of the HOA Board. We'd like to discuss the situation regarding lake access. Nothing to discuss. I said, not stopping my work. It's my property, has been since 1952. We understand that now, Jack said, shooting a glare at Brenda, who stood at the back of the group looking like she'd swallowed alum. We're hoping we can come to some sort of arrangement. The community has been using that beach for decades, and I've been paying taxes on it for decades. I countered funny how no one mentioned that way, and they were spreading sand on my beach. A woman in yoga pants piped up. We had no idea. Brenda told us the HOA owned to the waterline. More glares. Said Brenda, she seemed to shrink into herself. Her usual bluster completely deflated. Jack cleared his throat. We're calling an emergency board meeting tonight. The community needs to know exactly what land we do and don't have rights to. Brenda, I think you should prepare a full report on how this misunderstanding occurred. The meeting was apparently explosive. I heard about it from my nearest neighbor, Tom Houlivedant, Hevery Edge of Maplewood Estates, and had always been friendly, according to him. Residents demanded to know how Brenda had been so wrong about something so fundamental. Turns out she'd never actually checked the property records, just assumed that because the HOA maintained the beach, they owned it. You should have seen it. Tom told me over the fence, first time I've ever seen anyone actually yell at a board meeting. Well, besides Brenda herself, she tried to blame the previous board, then the county records office, then you for not correcting her sooner. Nobody was buying. Get a vote of no confidence was unanimous, minus Brenda's own vote. She was removed as president, effective immediately, and Jack took over, but that wasn't the end of her troubles. 3 days later, I started building my fence. Nothing aggressive, just Annis' split rail design that clearly marked the property line. He also installed posts for the private property not trespassing signs. My lawyer recommended. That's when Brenda made her final mistake. It caught her on camera at 2 in the morning trying to pull up my fence posts with her cart. The bumper of her Merced is got tangled in the wire, and she ended up dragging 50 feet of fencing before getting stuck in a ditch this time. I did press charges: destruction of property, trespassing, and vandalism. The judge was not amused, especially when he saw the trail camera footage of her previous intrusions. Mirsch Harrington, the judge said, peering over his glasses, you've shown a pattern of harassment and criminal behavior that's frankly shocking for someone in a position of community leadership or former leadership. It should say the finest came to $12,000 plus restitution for my fences. She also got 200 hours of community service and a restraining order keeping her 500 feet from muck on her face. When the judge read the sentence, was like watching someone realize they'd bet their house on a three-legged horse. $12,000, she gasped. But I was protecting our community. The judge's gavel came down hard. You were protecting your ego. Mrs. Harrington, consider yourself lucky. I'm not adding jail time. Let me know if you